The first time I ever laid hands on a volca sample was back in 2015, and I loved it ever since. I'd consider myself a volca sample, well, maybe not an expert, but definitely an aficionado. So naturally, after 8 years of using this machine, I've picked up quite a few tricks, and I've decided to compile them all into one video for you, and I promise you that some of these will blow your mind and will literally change your conception of what is actually possible with this machine. That is, if you don't know them all already. In that case, feel free to watch any other of my videos. Before we start though, a brief preamble. Yes, I am aware of the now legendary Pajen firmware. I actually have it installed on both my MKI and my MKII, but it will not be featured in this video. In fact, you can perform all of the tricks in this video using just the standard volca sample software. Pajen is not official software after all, and I understand people not wanting to invalidate their warranty or even break their machines, because, you know, it might happen sometimes if you don't do things correctly. Also, to be quite honest, while the Pajen firmware is pretty awesome, personally, I don't use it pretty much at all. It must be the way that I use my volcas as, you know, kind of standalone things, and I'm pretty sure that the Pajen software is more meant to be used with a MIDI controller. So I don't know, it's just the way that I use these machines, but that's a me problem, so please don't crucify me on this. Alright, cool. Anyway, let's start with motion sequence and step-based motion sequence. Right, so as you probably already know, you can record automation on the volca sample. Korg calls it motion sequence, and to activate it, you have to press Funk plus M12 on the MKII or Funk plus S2 on the MKI. It's the same button, just named differently. Just look for motion sequence. Once you do that, you can press record and play and move the parameter you want to automate. Just like that. But what if you want a more precise automation on a per step basis? Well, you can just press the step you want to affect and move the parameter you want to step lock. The step will start blinking to indicate that there is an automation on it. Now, an important distinction. On the MKII, all the rest of the steps will remain unaffected. Let's just say they'll remain at the base level. On the MKI, on the other hand, all the steps will take the same value as the last automated parameter. So let's say I have a piano panned in the center. If I automate just one step right here, all the other steps will take the same value. Unless you go and manually change those two, one by one. Not only this is quite time consuming, but it is also confusing as hell, and it gives you the impression that step motion sequencing doesn't work on the MKI, but it does. In fact, I literally only found out about this in the last year after owning an MKI since 2016. Moving on. One of the great things that this feature opens up for us is the possibility to make melodies. Of course, you can change the pitch of a sound on the volca sample by moving the speed knob. If you want to change the pitch by precise semitone steps, you press Funk while moving the knob. And if you want to automate this step by step, you need to grow octopus hands, cause it ain't easy. But the result is awesome. Remember that if you're on the volca sample MKI, the same rules for stop motion sequencing apply to pitch, of course. Off-grid beats and eighth swing. As you already know, there is a swing knob on the volca sample, which is low-key one of the most important features on this machine. I swear to God, before having the volca sample, I must have used swing in like 0.0000001% of my projects, both on hardware and software. Swing is usually criminally hidden in submenus, but here is front and center and really made me aware of what a big difference it makes on some beats that would otherwise be really pedestrian or mid, as the kids like to say these days. The only problem is, this is a preset swing and it only affects the even 16th notes on the pattern. Meaning these ones. So what to do if you want to get a swing on the 8th notes for that J Dilla, Madlib, fly low type vibe? Well, once again, you need to use motion sequencing. You hold the note you want to affect, press funk, and move the start knob. This will delay the playback of the sample, effectively giving you the chance to make off-grid beats. And we're using eighths in this case, but you can use this trick on any note in the sequencer. I actually like to put it on snares too. Now it might be a good moment to remind you that if you're enjoying this video, and particularly the sounds that I've been using in this video, well, you're in luck, because you can find them all in my Big Umami Bombs Volume 1 sample pack, and you can find it at bigumami.com. Anyway, let's get back to it. Slicing samples. So one of the criticisms about the volca sample is that you can't slice samples, except that technically you can. First of all, thank you to Chris Lodi for explaining this so eloquently in this video. Make sure you go and check it out. Open up a DAW or audio editor of choice. Load up a break. This one is from my free pack called Recycled Drums Volume 1, and you can get it at bigumami.com. Anyway, you want to make sure that this is exactly 1 bar long, loops correctly, and that every 16th is quantized, or at least every 8th. Then we need to do some obscure math for this to work. You need to download Audacity, which is a free audio editor, import the loop, measure exactly how long this is, and make sure this is set to samples. Then we need to add 10% of silence at the end of it. I know it sounds very weird and convoluted, but it works. And again, if you want a more detailed explanation, please check out Chris's excellent video. You load this bad boy into Vocer or Volca Librarian and turn on your Volca. Select the sample, light up all 16 or 8 steps, and you're gonna need to motion sequence all of them. The start value goes from 0 to 127th, so these are the values that you need for each 16th note. I'm gonna put them on the screen right now so you can write them down for future use. Once you do that, you're golden. And if you have similar breaks of a 1 bar length next to each other in the project, you can switch back and forth with the sample knob, which is great. Faux delay. Alright, we know we have reverb on the volca, right? What we sorely miss is a delay, but we can definitely fake one by activating the loop function, which is funk plus M11 on the MKII or funk plus S1 on the MK1. Once you do that, the sample will loop, of course, and you're gonna have to control the quote-unquote feedback of it with the amp decay knob. You control the quote-unquote tempo using the length knob. There we go. You can also step motion sequence both of these knobs, just not the loop on-off function. Faux sidechain, with a caveat. Sidechaining is used mostly with compressors. You put a compressor on, say, a chord, and then feed it a kick. That means that every time the kick plays, you get a lowering of the volume of the chord, introducing that cool pumping effect. Well, you can do that in the volca sample too. If the beginning of the chord sample coincides with the kick, you can automate the amp attack on that particular step. If you have steps where the kick is triggered, but the chord sample is playing back from a previous trigger, so there's no active trigger together with the kick, well, this is not going to work, because obviously you can't automate the amp for that particular trigger. So once again, you're going to have to use the slicing method I showed earlier, and you have to place some new triggers wherever the kick is playing. Let's see it in action. Squeeze some more sampling time, with a caveat. This is actually a very old sampling trick. Back in the day, samplers like the EMU SP1200 only had a few seconds of maximum recording time. So producers sped up their turntables to shorten the actual length of the sample. They would then pitch it down on the sampler, thus saving precious memory. We can also do this quite easily with software, of course. The problem with this is that, especially on a lo-fi machine like the volca sample, the quality is gonna kind of disintegrate if you pitch the samples down too much. But can I tell you a secret? I actually love that sound. I think it works great for lo-fi, jungle, or maybe old school hip-hop like this. Stereo samples, with a caveat. So who said that the volca sample only works in mono? Well, they're actually right. But there is a workaround. Grab the stereo sample you want to load, save 2 mono files out of it, a left file, and a right file. Now you're gonna have to load them both on the volca, and you're gonna pan them hard left and hard right. Of course, the problem with this is that you're gonna take up 2 channels instead of just 1. But hey, I got 2 volcas, so YOLO, I guess. But also, any step you make on one channel, you're gonna have to repeat on the other one. So, I mean, yeah, it's a pain, but sometimes there are things that just sound better in stereo. So yeah. Reverb dry wet mix, with a caveat. This is very similar to the previous trick in that it takes up 2 slots instead of just 1, but it's very useful sometimes. The dry wet on this machine is kind of fickle, and sometimes you want to have more control on the reverb send. So using the same sample you want to put reverb on, you turn on the same notes in a different track and set the dry wet all the way up to 100. Then you adjust the volume with the, volume knob. You can also play with the speed, high cut and length knobs to change the character of the reverb, which is super useful. The big problem with this method is that if you're gonna turn the dry wet all the way to 100, then you're kind of forced to use a duplicate of every sound that you want to put the reverb on, and that can severely limit the amount of tracks available on your volca sample. But then again, if you like me, you have a couple of these, it's not a big deal. And that's it, I think. I might be forgetting something. Actually, if I am, please let me know in the comments below, especially if you have some more tips and tricks that I've, skipped in this video. Here's some more volca sample stuff that you can look at. Please remember to go to my website, bigomami.com, for those sweet sample packs. It's been great. See you next time. Bye.